I'm your host, Davida Shensky, and you're listening to Live Without Limits, a dreams come true with the right mindset. Today's presentation is titled How to Ask for Help and When You Really Should. Picture this scene. You've just had one too many upsetting developments in your life, and the latest one is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Maybe it's getting chewed out at work when you already feel terrible. Perhaps you've had a disappointment, or perhaps you've had some sort of tragedy or problem to work through in your personal life. Either way, everything feels overwhelming. You don't know how to proceed or even if there's anywhere to go from here. You just feel like giving up. Maybe, just maybe, you should ask for help. You might reject the suggestion immediately, feeling as though asking for help is showing your weakness or that it's burdensome to others. But while asking for help, you can feel foreign and unknown and maybe make yourself feel as though you're abandoning your pride. Sometimes it's truly better to not do it alone. Asking for help is something that every single person will need to do at some point or another. After all, the wheel of society doesn't function without a collaborative approach. It also can feel good to vent and gain some perspective from another party. So, with that in mind, in this presentation, we'll discuss why you should ask for help, when you should do it, and how you can broach the subject with your loved ones. Let's dive in. Why should you ask for help? Asking for help might seem like a weakness, but in fact, it's actually a strength. It takes courage to admit that you're struggling and approach a loved one. Asking for help can also help you get through a particularly difficult feeling or situation, whether you just need help with a particular problem or with something more complex. Asking for help can guide you through the next part of your life. It can give you perspective. It can help you find solutions that you might simply not be able to see right now. We've all been there where we can't seem to think because our emotions have got the best of us. That's okay, but there are workarounds such as reaching out to a friend or loved one you trust who can help you navigate those emotions and move you past them. Asking for help can further teach you to learn from your mistakes or bad situations and can help you to become more resilient. Maybe in a similar situation, the next time you'll know exactly what to do, all because you mustered the courage and called a friend. So, when should you ask for help? Essentially, there are four main things that should prompt you to ask for help. Since everyone is different, you might have some other particular situations in mind. It's important to note that those four factors aren't the only thing to consider when wondering whether you need help. At the end of the day, ask for help when you feel you need it. If you aren't sure, refer to those 4 situations. The first one being when you have too much to deal with. This is especially sure or true if you're the kind of person who can't say no. If you've taken on too much, you might find yourself with far too much on your plate and no idea how to juggle it all. Life can throw things at us fast and hard, and you can find yourself unable to cope almost without warning. When you have too much to handle and can't cope, this is the time to seek help from people you love and trust. Maybe you might even need to delegate. If not, even just a shoulder to cry on or an ear to vent so that you can work wonders for our emotional state. For one thing, many a times we always need someone to talk to. Remember this, if you're on an island and you live alone, who are you going to relate to? What kind of relationship are you going to have? The importance is to understand that we all need someone in our life to make us who we are and help us be the best person that we can possibly be. 2, when you've made a mistake, we're all human and everyone makes mistakes. However, sometimes we don't like to admit it. We'll try and push through a mistake and hope that nobody notices. Maybe we'll even try to suppress our negative feelings about it, which doesn't usually end well. As you can imagine, this isn't the best way of handling a mistake. Feelings end up being bottled up and coming out one way or another. Plus, admitting that you've made a mistake and need help to set things right can take a lot of humility and courage. So talk it out and let it off your chest. Brainstorm solutions with a close friend or confidant. You don't need to deal with it alone. 3, when you're out of your depth, when there's too much to handle, you can feel overwhelmed. Acknowledging that you're out of your depth is the first step to getting help. When you decide to get help, make sure that you approach people who would be able to handle your particular situation. For example, you could approach a friend who's been through a similar situation or somebody you know who would be capable of handling it. 4, when you need an expert to help, realizing that you don't actually know what you're dealing with or doing or can't handle what you're supposed to be doing is a nasty feeling. And it's tempting to try and wing it or to push through with the hope that everything will be all right. If you feel that way, stop and think about who you could speak to that would be able to offer expert help or unique insight into your situation. For example, if you're suffering a serious mental health crisis, you may need to seek out an expert mental health professional, as well as open up to family and friends. This might sound daunting at first, but you'll feel better when you do. Here's another thing to think about. When it comes to family, sometimes the things that you think about or expect them to do unless they're willing to change their behavior. Often what happens is that it creates more conflict. So you may end up having to get away from the family, because if you need help and you need to change and they won't change, they're only going to try to pull you back into that same behavior. So how do you ask for help when you really need it? If you've decided that you need to ask for help, you need to decide who, when, and where. The who part can be tricky. It can, if certain loved ones have reacted badly when you've asked for help before, perhaps being unhelpful, distancing themselves, or being selfish with their time and sympathy, you might want to avoid them and avoid those particular people. Choose someone that you trust, someone that you love, and someone who has loved you in return. Next, you'll need to think about timing. Blurting out that you need help as a last minute thought, as the two of you are saying goodbye, isn't a good idea. It's a good idea to schedule a time to talk, and you may even want to be upfront and say that you have something important to discuss. Tell them your situation and be as honest as you can. Frankly, say that you need help and listen closely to what they say. How do you ask for help without being a burden? Most of us worry about being a burden if we ask for help, or worse still, being rejected. However, a good friend won't see asking for help as a burden. In fact, many people see asking for help as a sign of strength, trust, and love. You're showing your friend that you love them, trust them, and that you have high respect for them. However, don't try to take more than your loved one is ready to give. Other people's lives aren't blanks. They have their own problems and pressures to deal with. Try and be as understanding as you can. Most importantly, don't expect your friend to completely fix your problems. Dealing with your problems will take some time and patience, and you are still the one who should put in most of the effort to set things right. As Barack Obama has said, don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I do that every day. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It shows when you have the courage to admit when you don't know something. And what I also want to say is this, that back when I was a child, I was always made to feel as though I was going to always be dependent on people. So therefore, it was very important for me to be independent and to do things for myself. So it was very hard for me to try to ask for help, but it was something that I had to learn how to do, and I hope you learn to do the same thing.